Here are 7 big retirement expenses that we really need to account for and then just also plan ahead for. And doing so is going to make us fully prepared for this next stage. It's kind of funny that, as we think about retirement expenses, then a lot of people think about things like adding the travel budget or adding the additional entertainment bucket or budget because we've got all this time now. However, some of the biggest expenses that we're going to have are not those. Now, one of the things to be aware of is that much of our spending that we have while we're working, it's actually just going to carry over into retirement, right? And now some things might drop off like commuting expense, or maybe if you're going to lunch every day at work or something like that. But a lot of the things are going to carry over and we're just going to be adding on top of them. So let's get into what these expenses are and then how you can prepare for them. And then also, if you have ideas as you're listening, let me know in the comments what I missed. There's other people that have said they really get a lot of value when they hear or read other people's comments in similar stage of life as them. So if you've got an idea, put it down there. But let's get into the first one, and it's probably on your mind, but let's put some numbers to it. And that's healthcare, right? If you retire before 65, the average couple could spend up to $17K out of pocket each year until they enroll in Medicare at age 65. And that's according to Kiplinger. But if you're 65, the expenses are a little bit less, which is great. You've got Medicare. But over time, healthcare spending is likely to be one of the bigger expenses that we face in retirement. And let me just pull up my iPad here to look at a couple numbers. So I'll include these links below, but median annual spending by health status. So if we've got someone who's low risk and ultimate health, here is just an example of what expenses could be per year, medium risk. And then if you're high risk, if you're doing some of these things here. And the other thing to think about is the inflation rate of what medical expenses might be. Now, historically, we've seen that the inflation rate of medical, and let's see if we can zoom in on this. The blue is all goods and services is the blue, and then medical care is here. So right now, doesn't look too bad, but let's look at it in a different view. So blue is all goods and services and what the inflation rate is over time, and then green is actual medical care. Now, this could change in the future with technology. We don't know, but it's at least something to model in to a plan as we're mapping out these expenses and where they could be going in the future. The next expense to think about that many people know about, but they believe that it's going down in retirement, it's taxes. But a lot of people are surprised when they actually get to retirement and then they realize that taxes go up. Now, maybe not in the first year. Again, this depends. If you're living off Social Security or a brokerage or a bank account, you don't have to worry about a big tax issue, most likely. But if you're like a lot of our clients, then you might start realizing that taxes in retirement might actually go up. And many times we see sort of like a dip in expenses, in taxes right after the retirement date here, because we're working, income's up here, and then all of a sudden we don't have work income anymore, and a lot of times taxes decline. But what happens later in life is as you get into your 70s, you actually have to start taking out of your IRAs and pre-tax monies, and a lot of times we see taxes go up for those people who have a lot saved in those pre-tax accounts. Now, your 70s could be a ways off, right? But if paying the least amount of taxes over your lifetime is important, then we should really be thinking about it now and making a plan for it. At least others have found a lot of benefit in doing this. And the other thing to note here too is that the government's got a few strategies here to reduce national debt. 2 of the big ones are taxes and inflation, right? Which leads a lot of people to think that tax rates could be going up in the future. And one of the things that I was looking at every so often, I'll look at, and maybe you understand this too, but taxes could be cyclical, right? The tax rates could be cyclical. Right now, we're at, could be historically lower tax rates. Again, we don't know what's happening. It's good to plan for a few different what-if scenarios here. Again, this is why having an ongoing system of tax planning and just tax review and just tax-efficient withdrawal strategy can be so important here. I did another video called How to Get More into Roth, which a lot of people ask about when we have conversations with them. And I'll link to that here or below so you can watch that one too. It shows really just the impact of just a little bit of planning and how it could actually save millions over someone's lifetime. Now, the next expense that people tend to overlook is home maintenance. Now you overlook it because you've been doing it all yourself for the last 20, 30, 40 years. But if you plan to stay in your home through retirement, you might see expenses, home maintenance costs actually increase. And why would that be? The first reason is a lot of clients, they start to value their time in retirement differently than they did before. Something that they didn't mind doing in the past. Now they look at it a little bit differently as they're really focusing on what do they want to do with their time, right? Say it's cleaning the gutters or the windows. That's easy enough to do in the past, but you might get to the age where you'd rather do something else. The value of someone else doing that may outweigh the cost of paying for it, and then you can spend your time on something else that you'd rather be doing, even if it's just going to the cafe and reading a book. Now, if that's not you and you say, I'm always going to be doing these household things, I've done it all my life, no big new expenses there. Just one thing to be aware of is that as you get older, as you get into your upper, early 70s, late 70s, there's going to be a time where there's some limitations. There's going to be an age where you're getting on a ladder to clean the gutters is no longer going to be worth it, just out of security and health and safety for yourself. So just something to think about as you're planning long term here. So as I'm sharing these two, I'm thinking that all of these expenses, they really fall into two categories that if we can segment these expenses into two categories, it usually helps our clients feel a lot better when they're planning their retirement. And I'll get to that coming up. The next expense that usually increases in retirement is one that is on a lot of people's bucket lists, and that's travel, especially right after you retire. In that first 10 or 15 years of retirement, sometimes we refer to it as the go-go years. That's where we're young and mobile and able to move and we're ready to go. So travel could be kind of front-loaded in that first 10 years where we're spending a lot more those 10 years and then probably slows down later on in life as we get into mid-70s or upper 70s. The next expense, I'll keep flying through these, is kids and grandkids, right? Whether it's travel with them or whether it's the Disney vacations or just the gifts or experiences you want to have with them when they're young. And then another big one with kids, grandkids, is schooling. Whether it's 529s or just paying for private school, whatever it might be, or just funding future schooling for them. That could be a big expense as well. The next one is, I'd say, is an expense, but it's also like an investment, and that's just your health and fitness. Right? That's so essential as we're planning and living retirement. And it's a must that we have to have in retirement if we want it to be a good one, right? As you age, we got to prioritize health. We got to include fitness and wellness, and even hiring. Some people hire a trainer, a physical trainer, just to get them on the right shape newly in retirement, just so that they're doing it and they could set up a routine that they could follow well into retirement. So the cost of maintaining a healthy lifestyle can add up, and it's just crucial to factor in the gym memberships, the classes, or other health-related things, and even food. The more expensive food is sometimes the more healthy food or the whole food, right? So again, think about that as you're planning out retirement. And then the last one is just entertainment, right? It's those things, you've got the time now, it's time to enjoy, and it's time to explore those passions and interests, and having a budget for this new entertainment is going to be important as well. So we always like adding a separate line item either on the budget or when we're looking at the plan to see what if we increase entertainment expenses by this much? How does it impact the plan? How does the decision today impact a long-term impact of the plan? Or what does it look like? As long as it's not crashing the plan, then we're all for spending money on these things. Now, what are those two categories that I just mentioned a little bit earlier in this video? It's really two things that are important to think about and put these expenses into. It's the needs and the wants. And the reason why people like doing this, or what we've seen, is if you can have, these are the actual, the essentials we just need to live. It's the housing, right? It's the medical, it's the food, it's the things that we need to just live our normal life. And then also separating into the wants, like, I would like to have healthcare over here, but maybe the gym membership is over here. Again, you get to decide what's the need and the want. Maybe this is the travel. Maybe it is the funding the kids, grandkids 529s, whatever it is. The reason why this is big is because during a a time where, let's pretend there's a longer than expected bear market and things are maybe a little bit more uncertain than you wanted them to be, knowing exactly what the dollar amount of the needs is and realizing, oh yeah, we're gonna be okay. Maybe we're not gonna do the trip or something like that. It's just a quick way to remember and remind yourself things are gonna be okay. So hopefully that video was helpful looking at some of these expenses. I hope you thought a little bit about them more. The important thing is, put them into the plan, map out the expenses, and then get more comfortable with what you're doing and get more comfortable with your future. If it was helpful, please give it a like, and then I'll see you in the next video. And by the way, I'm Dave Zoller, and I own a retirement planning firm, Streamline Financial. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks, and take care.